Uh, that we have.
Good afternoon, sir. Garangini this side from Satyam Micro Capital.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Sundarajan from Valaraditi.
Namaste,
Welcome.
sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Namaste.
afternoon, Anjanda. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Very-
I'm Surya from South India Invest.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Very good afternoon, sir. This is Dinesh from Pahal Financials.
Welcome. Welcome.
In 5 minutes, we will start.
Good afternoon, sir.
संदीप एक बार सॉरी Mr. Satish, I'd request you to start this with your welcome note.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I welcome all of you for taking time and joining this virtual meet regarding E-KYC authentication following the Reserve Bank's recent circular. If I recall, right from the year 2015-16 onwards, the efforts in the microfinance sector has been to have Aadhaar as a single ID authentication for all our microfinance clients. And accordingly, we started building up our systems, and we had a lot of support from UIDA also for this. And I recall the meetings we used to have in the old UIDA office in Connaught Place, where the entire sector we used to meet, and there used to be a lot of support from the DG and the DDGs of the UIDI for the microfinance sector to go forward. And but unfortunately, because of one of the rulings of the Supreme Court, the clock was set back a little. But even then, after certain amendments and all, we continued to engage UIDA, and the authority was quite positive in the sense that whatever your regulator takes steps with regard to include all the regulated entities in the E-KYC process, the UIDA will be gladly trying to join and help you. So we had quite a positive feedback from that side. And even from RBI side, from the regulatory side, we had been receiving a lot of positive feedback. And we all know that last year, RBI has positively recommended the case of NBFC MFI to the government. And now we have this RBI circular where it has been open to all the NBFCs, including NBFC MFIs, and the process is also there. So we felt that all our member institutions should be acquainted with the process of getting on board with this E-KYC process. For these reasons, we have organized this consultation meet today. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Anjan Das Gupta, MD, ASA International, for having agreed to be the moderator. I know Anjanda, and I am confident that he can do a very good job in moderating and getting the best out of today's event. We are very thankful that Mr. Sanjeev Yadav, Assistant Director General Authentication and Application Division of UIDAI, will be joining us in this meet. So he will be able to bring the perspective from the UIDAI side. I thank him for that. Mr. D. Shivaprakash, co-founder and CIO, IIFL Samastha Finance Limited. He is joining as one of our speakers. Then Mr. Krishna Chandran, CEO of KPB FinCare. He also will be joining as one of the speakers. And Ankush Deshpande, Vice President, NSDL. And Mr. Shiv Kumar, CEO of Craft Silicon. So I welcome all of today's resource persons. And now I request Anjanda to moderate this event and take it forward. Over to you, Anjanda.
Thank you, Satish ji. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Satish ji and Shoibal and all others who have organized this. This has come in at an appropriate time. I mean, just after the Reserve Bank's most welcome circular. Sizable recommendation has gone in, I know, from your side, persuasion from your side to the regulators, government and UIDAI that has resulted in this eagerly awaited notification from RBI. Thank you, panelists and all participants who have joined us. Today's discussion is on E-KYC authentication and the RBI notification in this respect. Like this has come at an appropriate time. I mean, when we are looking for digital initiatives, while we have covered up all the payment, I mean, the collections part or the payment of loans part, the customer onboarding is yet to be actually digitized totally. And this particular circular is going to help us in getting that done. So the panelists are with vast experience and from reputed organizations into services relevant to today's discussion. We are privileged to have Mr. Sanjeev Yadav, Assistant Director, UIDAI. We'll get sizable input, sizable suggestion and advice from him. Mr. Krishna Chandra, who is in this panel, is the CEO of KPB FinCare. His vast microfinance experience of 14 years and setting up greenfield microfinance operation. He is an engineer and MBA from IIFM. His company profile mentions about the new phase of microfinance with paperless and cashless operations, all digital initiatives. So we'll gain sizably from him. Mr. Shiva Prakash is the co-founder of and CIO of Samastha Finance Limited. I had the privilege of visiting his organization. He has a vast experience, and I mean, I was really impressed by the way they do microfinance. Ankush Deshpande is Vice President NSDL. NSDL, besides many other important services, provides Aadhaar authentication services. We'll get sizable inputs from him and how we go forward, and if required, what support we can seek from him. Mr. Sanjay Guria is from Computer Age Management Services, CAMS as they call. CAMS provides services to Indian asset management companies, insurance company, banks, NBFCs, and KYC services, besides other services. Shiva Kumar is from Craft Silicon. Craft Silicon has been providing software services. I mean, from the time I've been into microfinance, I have seen them do provide important software services and digital initiatives to MFIs, banks, and other financial institutions across the globe. The strength of the company and its services is increasing efficiency through its innovations, flexibility, and their expert domain knowledge. So, I mean, before I start, I would request Mr. Shiva Prakash to make a presentation and set the context of this discussion before I go to other panel members for today's topic. So over to you.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be part of this discussion. I have a short presentation to discuss RBI notification and how this would actually benefit the MFI sector. As a sector that has long used to having Aadhaar number as the primary customer ID, MFIs did not have an effective way of verifying the genuineness of the Aadhaar number. While the banks were allowed to do E-KYC, were allowed to use E-KYC facilities provided by UIDAI. NBFCs did not have an option to verify the genuineness through E-KYC. So it is in this context that RBI's notification on 13th September is a welcome move for the MFIs. It allows NBFCs to apply for Aadhaar authentication license for E-KYC authentication. So this certainly will help the sector in terms of reducing frauds, and also it will help in improving the speed of customer onboarding. Okay. To begin with, what is authentication? Authentication is a process by which you verify the genuineness of a customer's Aadhaar number. Okay, I mean, right now, most of the frauds are happening in the field because there's no way to verify whether Aadhaar ID is genuine or not. I mean, of course, we also have voter ID, but again, we have a lot of challenges in terms of voter ID verification. So in this case, in case of Aadhaar authentication, there are two types of authentication. One is Aadhaar authentication, where it's a simple process where we pass on customers' Aadhaar number and with the biometric information, we get a yes or no response. I mean, it doesn't share any other information about the customer. It just establishes that the customer's credentials are correct or not. Okay. Whereas in case of E-KYC authentication, in addition to establishing customers' credentials, it also provides customers demographic details like name, gender, date of birth, address, photos, etc. So because of this, we don't need to collect any physical documents. I mean, the photocopies of the Aadhaar card from the customer. I mean, so this promotes paperless culture. Okay. So for E-KYC authentication, for an entity to be able to do E-KYC authentication, it has to have a KUA license. KUA stands for E-KYC User Agency. Any entity with this license can do E-KYC authentication. Okay, an organization which doesn't generate so much volume, so many transactions, they can opt for sub KUA, but sub KUA license, which also means that they have to tie up with another KUA to enable E-KYC facility. Okay. So now that we know about what authentication means, what are the benefits to MFIs because of E-KYC authentication? I mentioned earlier that we can verify the genuineness of the Aadhaar number, which means that any forgeries can be detected immediately, and it also thereby reducing fraud. It also provides demographic information about details about the customer, which means that it reduces the amount of time you spend on entering data in the software. It also doesn't require you to collect photocopy of the Aadhaar ID, so it generally speeds up the onboarding of the customers. Okay, and best of all, it's instant. It's real time and instant. You'll get the information about the customer, whether the customer's Aadhaar number is genuine or not, immediately. Okay. So now that we have this, where do we use this authentication? The ideal place to use is in your onboarding app, where you can, at the time of customer onboarding, you can do the verification. So at that time itself, you can either reject the customer or start onboarding the customer. The other one is Aadhaar authentication at the time of disbursement. Here, you don't need to pull E-KYC information, but you can just validate if the customer who has come for disbursement is the genuine customer. Of course, if you have e-sign, you don't need to do Aadhaar authentication at the time of disbursement. But where people are not using, companies are not using e-sign, Aadhaar authentication can be used. Okay. Of course, there are multiple use cases. I mean, I've also seen cases where companies use Aadhaar authentication at the time of center meeting. Not for every customer. Some random customer will be selected for Aadhaar authentication at the time of center meetings. So now that we know the different types of authentication and the benefits and where we can use E-KYC, how do we actually do the authentication? What devices do we use? There are biometric scanners which have to be approved by UIDAI. I mean, there's a list of devices that's available in UIDAI's website. So I mean, unless these devices are registered devices, it cannot be used for E-KYC verification. So there are two ways of doing it. One is iris scan. The other one is fingerprint recognition. Okay. So basically, when you do authentication using mobile devices, it's usually iris scan and fingerprint recognition. In case there are web-based enrollment is there, you can opt for mobile-based, mobile OTP-based verification. But in our sector, since our customers keep changing mobile numbers frequently, using OTP verification is going to be a challenge. It will certainly be a challenge considering our experience in the sector. So the other things, even with fingerprint recognition, we use AEPS for collection. So we have used fingerprint devices there. We have experiences, a lot of cases where the devices don't recognize customer fingerprint. Okay, so that could certainly be a challenge. And the other challenge is the network. I mean, for online verification to happen, network connectivity is important. There are a lot of rural places where connectivity could be a problem. So these are some of the challenges that we will have to address before we can fully go become 100% E-KYC verification company. Okay, so how do we sign up? I mean, right now, what RBI has mentioned is application has to be submitted to RBI. So, I mean, RBI will do a due diligence to make sure that, it's a request that is genuine. And based on that, they will forward to UIDAI. And the application form which they have shared is quite straightforward. There are around 21 points that you need to fill. Once you fill and submit, they will scrutinize the form application, and then they'll do the due diligence before forwarding to UIDAI. Once UIDAI approves it, then you are notified as a KUA by Ministry of Finance. So this is something which as an organization, we are still talking to multiple vendors on doing this. So we don't have too many details on how difficult or easy this process would be. So I mean, probably we'll have to wait for some more time to understand this process. But I mean, at least the form or application form which I look at, it doesn't seem like it's going to be too difficult to fill. Okay. One thing about using Aadhaar number is you cannot store Aadhaar number in the local database in your application. You are allowed to store for last 4 digits of the Aadhaar number, but you cannot store the entire 12-digit Aadhaar number. So in that case, if you want to retain the Aadhaar number, then you have to implement Aadhaar data vault. Okay, so this is a mandatory step that needs to be done. Cost factor for an MFI. The numbers are approximate. Biometric scanners, it's around. If it's a fingerprint device, it's around 2,500 rupees. And if you're looking for this one iris scan device, then it's around 4,000 rupees. Of course, there are a lot of tabs that come with iris scanner, but I'm not sure how many are actually in use as of now. Okay. To begin with, there's a license charge to be paid to UIDAI. I could not get the information, but from a circular that came out 2 years ago, it was around 20 lakhs. I don't know if it would still be the same. That's a one-time deposit. I think it's a deposit, which means it's refundable. So that cost would be there. And apart from that, for every transaction, there is a charge of probably 3 or 4 rupees for every E-KYC. So that's an additional charge I mean, again, I think it may be dependent on volume. So there could be, I mean, the prices could be lower than that. Okay, then of course we need to implement. There are server costs, KUS server cost, and other data vault implementation cost, and some audits have to be done, and digital certificates. All these costs are approximate. That we will know only once we start implementing it. So this is what I had. I mean, from a MFI perspective, I thought these are the main things to be covered. So to give an update to the people that are present here. So if you have any other questions, or probably we can, as part of the panel discussion, we can take questions on this notification.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shiv Prakash. We can take the questions together in that open discussion that we have at the end. We'll keep around 10 to 15 minutes time for that. You know, so thank you so much. I mean, you made my task easy, actually. You know, giving elaborate details of this notification and how we go about it. So Aadhaar initiative from UIDAI has been wonderful initiative that has made a qualitative change in all aspects of our life, whether in finance, banking, or services. The base of the pyramid has benefited immensely from this through direct transfer of funds. It has also helped financial inclusion. You know, it's a wonderful initiative from the government and UIDAI, and the structure is such that it works seamlessly. I mean, capturing so much of data, but seamlessly it works. You know, so we must thank UIDAI for doing this. I request Mr. Sanjeev Yadav for his view and suggestion on the recent RBI circular. The expectations of UIDAI from those applying for the KUI or ASA. What expectations do you have from them? Sanjeev Yadav, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon all. This is Aditya Pal. I am General Manager in UIDAI Authentication Division. I work with ADG Sanjeev sir, and he is here with me also. So I think Mr. Shiv Prakash has covered most of the things and updated everyone that how Aadhaar authentication can be used, what is E-KYC, what is the process issued by Department of Revenue in its circular dated 9th May 2019, right? So this was the process circulated by Department of Revenue that the non-banking entities, reporting entities which are non-banking companies, they can approach their respective regulator, and the regulator has to recommend the application, the individual application to UIDAI. Basis on the recommendation and evaluation from UIDAI, UIDAI may provide its recommendation to Department of Revenue, and then Department of Revenue will have to notify that particular entity for use of Aadhaar authentication. So till this point, when that notification comes out from Department of Revenue, that will provide a legal entity to the entity to use Aadhaar authentication. Afterwards, as Mr. Shiv Prakash mentioned, that the entity may itself want to become a AUA or KUA, Authentication User Agency, or E-KYC User Agency, or that entity might want to become a sub-entity of any existing AUA or KUA with the approval of UIDAI. So that approval, for even if you want to become a sub-entity of some other AUA, KUA, you have to take approval from UIDAI. And there is a separate application format for that. If any entity want to become AUA or KUA, there is a separate process wherein you need to submit your application along with some set of documents, and there is a process of signing off agreement with UIDAI. There is a pre-production license fee of ₹5 lakh before your application is approved. So after this notification is done by the Department of Revenue, the entity has to make an application to UIDAI to be appointed as AUA-KA or a sub-AUA, right? And to become a AUA-KA, you have to submit the application. You have to submit the license fee of rupees 20 lakhs for AUA-KA, and even the bank guarantee of rupees 25 lakhs for 10 years. So initially we provide you the pre-production access, and once you complete your testing, you need to get a information security audit from a certain empaneled auditor, submit the report to UIDAI, and then UIDAI evaluates that IS audit report. A physical verification is also done from UIDAI side, and once everything is fine, then production access is given to the entity. So this is the process to get onboarded with UIDAI. You had also talked about the fingerprint, iris, and OTP based authentications. I'd like to update you on the mobile linking status with UIDAI. More than 80 crore mobile numbers have been linked with Aadhaar as on date. Yes, there might be some mobile numbers which persons may have changed, right? So we do not have those change numbers, but in our records, we have 80 crore plus mobile numbers registered with us. This is one. And the second thing is that while fingerprint is the most widely used way of authentication as on date, UIDAI is also promoting use of iris devices, because by implementing iris devices, you provide different modes of authentication to the resident. So if a person is not able to authenticate, say using fingerprint, you can always try to authenticate that person using iris, which has a better success rate compared to fingerprint, and it is a secure device compared to the fingerprint device. So this is from UIDAI side. One more thing, you mentioned about Aadhaar Data Vault. So I think Aadhaar Data Vault is to be implemented only by those entities who are allowed to store Aadhaar number, right? So if you are not storing full Aadhaar number, then there is no need to implement Aadhaar Data Vault. And my recommendation would be that because you just need to identify the person, you need to verify the identity of the person. And if there is no direct benefit transfer to the customer, right? So for DBT is actually enabled through Aadhaar number. So if there is no DBT being done, there is no requirement to store full Aadhaar number. UID provides a different unique identifier for every authentication, which we call UID token, which is equivalent to Aadhaar number, but it is specific to the person and it's specific to the entity. So that unique identifier UID token is good enough to uniquely identify all your customers in your database. And with Aadhaar, with not maintaining or storing Aadhaar number in your database, you do not need to maintain Aadhaar Data Vault also. So which is a little complex implementation and requires some it has some cost also. So that can be avoided by not storing Aadhaar. So this is all from my side. If you have any questions, you are most welcome.
I mean, thank you so much, Sanjeev ji. I mean, that was elaborate discussion on this. So, I mean, like the rule says that I have a question for you. Like the rule says that you cannot store the Aadhaar number. I mean, that's the existing rule. We don't store the Aadhaar number, but you're giving an alternate number which is unique to the organization. But I mean, before the judgment came in, Supreme Court judgment came in, or the new regulations came in that we cannot store the Aadhaar number. We had a very strong credit bureau. I mean, the credit bureau is still there, but we are now dependent on other numbers like voters card and PAN numbers and other. But I mean, when Aadhaar was a unique, document, I mean, it used to act much better. You know, like, I mean, we could identify the uniqueness of the client and all that. So is there any way this alternate number can be used again by the credit bureaus so that we get a more filtered and correct data on the credit bureaus?
No, it is entity specific unique identifier. So for a resident, it is entity specific unique identifier, and it cannot be used for deduplication among different entities. And that was the purpose, so that there is no merging of databases. That was the purpose this unique identifier was generated. So
Okay.
I think if you are having PAN number in your databases, you can use PAN to submit any information to credit bureaus. And Aadhaar number, as you rightly said, Aadhaar number, even before the Supreme Court judgment, the NBFCs were classified or categorized by UID as a local KUA, and Aadhaar number was not allowed to NBFCs. Another update I missed while I was discussing, we have also revised the authentication pricing regulations. So as of now, UIDAI is charging 20 rupees for E-KYC services per successful E-KYC. And yes, the authentication is charged at 50 paise. However, we have uploaded the revised pricing regulations, proposed pricing regulations on our website. And in which we are proposing E-KYC to be at 3 rupees and yes no is constant at 50 paisa. So if you have any comments or feedback, you can provide in the format which is given on our website.
Okay. So, thank you very much. So let me take it on a different track now to the MFIs. Let me start with Krishna Chandra. I mean, what is the opportunity that you are seeing that's opening up after this RBI circular Aadhaar authentication services for NBFCs and the payment system providers? This must be a forward-thinking move towards digital journey. What are the opportunities that you see in this welcome move by RBI?
So before I answer that question, could I ask something to Mr. Aditya from UIDAI? This is related to the same topic.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Aditya, you mentioned that we are not required to implement the Aadhaar data vault as if we do not require to store the Aadhaar number. But for a MFI, how Anjan sir mentioned, the main purpose for us is authentication. Then sharing this Aadhaar number with credit bureaus to get the correct credentials and credit history of the customer. So if we implement the Aadhaar data vault, are we allowed to store the Aadhaar number? And if we are allowed to store Aadhaar number through the Aadhaar data vault, how can we transfer that Aadhaar number to credit bureau to verify the credit information? Would you be able to answer this, Mr. Aditya?
So I think as per the current rule position, non-banking entities are not allowed. Non-banking companies are not allowed to store full Aadhaar number. This is one. And even Aadhaar Act prevents sharing of Aadhaar information in this manner. So like for credit bureaus and also existing data, you cannot share. Aadhaar Act section 29(3) of the Aadhaar Act prevents such sharing with any other entity, right? And for any sharing, there has to be a specific consent from the resident. So these are two things.
No, consent can be taken.
Yeah, so what I said, as per the current rule position, non-banking companies are not allowed to store.
Okay, thank you. Now let me try to answer Anjan sir's question. Definitely, this is a very forward-looking move, and as all of us are trying to digitize our operations further and further. As Mr. Shiv Prakash had earlier mentioned, this is going to speed up the customer onboarding process. You don't right now we are taking the photographs of the KYC documents, sending it to a central team, and they are entering the data, and then the validated data is coming to a DB. But here, in an instant, you are getting the information of the customers. But thinking about this on what further savings that we could have, unless we are allowed to actually store the Aadhaar number, there might not be that much of a saving in this time or cost by implementing this method. because right now also we are able to authenticate a customer through voter ID. That could be done digitally also. And as Mr. Aditya mentioned, if NBFCs are not allowed to store Aadhaar and we continue to store voter ID for the credit bureau purpose, then the process almost remains the same, except that now the some of the demographic details plus the photograph of the user could be captured through the UIDAI database. Second, for a smaller entities, we are a small size Mfas, and there could be many like us. The cost of compliance could be also pretty high, in the sense when I was going through the regulations, I found that the penalty of the first instance itself could go as high as rupees 1 crore. And unless like you rectify this per day penalty of under rupees 10 lakhs is mentioned in the act, I don't know whether somebody has like penalized like that, but that is there in the act. So for a smaller entity, when we are trying to get this done, even through like a software partner, etc., who is going to bear the cost of the compliance? Like if it's coming to MFI's head, then from the limited benefit that we are seeing, which is instantaneous population of the demographic details, I think the cost benefit analysis, I am still unable to say that, okay, this is a fantastic thing that is going to propel us to the next level. That's what I would like to say, sir.
Thank you, Shivaprakash. You share the similar views, or you have a different view on this?
See, cost is one thing. I mean, we are still not clear, but 3 rupees is what Mr. Sanjeev said. So let's assuming that cost is around that one. See, verification, authentication is definitely critical. Okay, I mean, we as an organization, we also validate voter ID, but it's not as simple as E-KYC process. Okay, we have seen how E-KYC works before. So from that perspective, I would any day welcome this move by RBI to apply for this license. So definitely, this is a welcome move. That, I mean, for an organization of our size, it definitely helps in reducing fraud. Even if you look at voter ID, there one person can have more than one voter ID. So, and again, verifying genuineness to an extent is difficult, considering how slow the validation is with voter ID. But with UIDAI, the technology is new, and even the way verification is authentication done is also quite smooth. So for us, for an organization of our size, it definitely is a good opportunity to make use of this.
So, I mean, I would request Mr. Ankush Deshpande to tell us, I mean, for being authorized KYC agency, KUI or ASA, the setup must have elaborate structure, protocol, data security, and the processes in place. How challenging are these going to get for NBFC, MFI, or other payment service providers to have this setup? I mean, Shivaprakash covered it in his presentation too, but I mean, if you go through the whole procedure of UIDAI, I mean, it's elaborate. Of course, it is a need that you should have a proper data security. I mean, but how will it go for the NBFC, MFI, and other payment providers?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Anjan. It's nice to hear all the speakers before me. As you said, I'll just if you can enable me for make a presentation, I'll just give a quick snapshot of what you have just said with 3-4 slides. Yeah, So NSDL e-governance, I'm sure all of you are aware about what we are into. We are providing Aadhaar services now for more than 10 years. We were one of the registrar also for Aadhaar, and we started our association with UIDI with the enrollment of the resident almost since the inception of UIDI. And then later on, we started providing ASA, KSA, AUA, KUA, and eSign, all these services. So talking specifically about Aadhaar authentication and E-KYC services, Mr. Shiv Prakash already in his opening remarks have given us a snapshot of what authentication and E-KYC is. Just to take again quickly through that, authentication is a process where Aadhaar number, his personal details can be identified by verified from UIDI with yes or no. And E-KYC, of course, it gives the all the details, demographic details. So the features of this is it's a data stored at a central portal or cloud. It completely eliminates the paper verification movement or storage thereof. So as we were discussing just now, if it's a voter ID or PAN or any other kind of verification or proof of identity, in case of Aadhaar, it is totally paperless. Give only your fingerprint or iris, and all the details can be availed by you, and no need for further verification of these details. And it is coming directly to you from the government. It's in the real-time basis, so without any manual intervention, you get the data immediately on your screen, and obviously it eliminates the document forgery because of that. So for all the ecosystem partners who are involved in this, there are benefits because of authentication and E-KYC. Government, of course, it eliminates the fake identities. It promotes the paperless environment. It is compliant to the latest standards of IT Act. For the clients, it eliminates the forgery, eliminates paper verification. So whatever data you are getting, you don't. I understand a lot of you when you get the POI or POA in kind of passport details or license details or any other things. On the sample basis, you also do the verification from the original entities like passport office or license office or etc. In case of this, you don't need to do the verification because it is directly coming from the government of India. And it is digitally signed and machine readable. One of the question I read in the chat just now is whether this, how do you know whether the data will be tampered or not and all those things. So this is digitally signed. The data, if it is tampered or something happens to the data, you will immediately come to know because the digital signature will not verify and digital signature will become invalid, and it is machine readable. And when I'm saying machine readable, it means that whatever data you are getting in the XML from UIDI, the data you can straight away upload to your database. It can be pre-populated wherever you want. And for customer, of course, it's a immediate response. There will be no hassles of carrying the physical documents. You go with your fingerprint anywhere or with your iris anywhere, give your fingerprint or iris, and the details can be easily availed by the entity. So ease in opening of multiple accounts for them. Again, these are the same features. I think we have discussed this. Low cost is one of the important features what comes into. This is the important one, as Mr. Aditya also from UIDI also was telling. So the onboarding process is you have to make application to UIDI. UIDI, after approving this application, signs the agreement with the entity. Entity then has to sign the agreement with the existing ASA, KSA. Now, this is the process for if you are applying as a AUA, KUA. So if any entity applies as a AUA, KUA, they need the letter from ASA, KSA like NSDL EGO. So we will provide that letter to you, and that letter can further be submitted to UIDI. Then UIDI will issue the license key for pre-production to AUA, KUA. And we will provide you all the technical support for doing the testing in the pre-production. When entity completes the end-to-end testing, system audit certificate will be availed by the entity, which will be submitted to UIDI along with the go-live checklist for production access. And once all these details are submitted to UIDI, UIDI will then provide the license key for production, and then the actual transactions can happen from the entity. Now, I'm for the sake of simplicity, I'm telling you all these details quickly so that all of you can understand. It obviously takes some time, but not not many days or months or weeks. Within 6 to 7 to 8 days, everything can be completed. And as a ASA KSA or as a AUA KUA, when you are applying for sub AUA or sub KUA, we are there to help you at every step. I mean, right from the make application to UIDI till the time you get the auditor certificate or auditor appointment and everything, we can provide you this thing. One small thing I would like to clarify, Mr. Shiv Prakash also said initially, the cost of the auditor will be approximately around 40-50,000 rupees instead of something in lakhs. So yeah, we also provide the contacts of the auditor. We have a lot of auditors number, and these are all STQC certified auditor as specified by UIDI. So not any auditor can do these audits. But yes, the cost should not be that higher. Of course, if you take it from the big four or some known entities, then the cost will be little higher. But there are auditors who can do it at 40, 50, 60,000 also. So we will help you in all this. Technical integration will be done by our team. So we will provide the APIs. We will give you all the necessary system support. And the entire integration from your server to our server can be done with the help of our technical team and your technical team. The only difference is our technical team may not be able to reach on-site of yours, obviously because of limitations, but we will be there online, and in today's age, I mean, we are also meeting virtually. The virtual support is as good as the physical support, so that should not be a problem at all. So NSDL e-governance, as I said initially, we are registered with UIDI for providing almost all the services now, ASA, KSA, AUA, KUA. We are giving these services for more than 8 years. Before the Supreme Court order, we were giving the services to almost 200 entities across the market. Now also we are giving authentication and E-KYC only services to more than 30 entities. We are also providing the e-sign services initially, as Mr. Anjan said, that e-sign also is one of the factors. We are providing that services also to more than 200 entities across the market. So 24/7 production support, of course, I mean, this is not the point we should highlight. It is a given thing nowadays. And then the competitive pricing. So prices, as we discussed initially, there will be license charge depending upon what you are applying for, whether it is a AUA, sub-AUA kind of a thing. And then there will be the per transaction charges. Per transaction charges, as Mr. Aditya said, it will be, they have reduced the charges now, or they are in the process of reducing the charges now. On that charges, our charges will apply. Marginal charges will be there depending upon what volumes you're proposing. Other than that, there is no cost involved in this. And ADB, other data vault and all, as it is not required. Otherwise, we provide those services also. But I understand in this case, it will not be required. So these are the details. You can contact either me or my colleague, Ms. Nisha Nair, for availing these services from our side. And that's a brief from us. Yes, sir, please.
Thank you, Ankushdeep. That was quite elaborate. Like, I mean, my question next is to Mr. Aditya before I go over to Shiv Kumar. Like, I mean, the small or the mid-sized MFIs, if they use the services of NSDL and they apply for a sub-license, I mean, is the sub-license much easier in sanctioning? And what are the, I mean, what are the parameters that you see in granting this sub-license? I mean, is it much easier than getting the original license of KUA?
So from UIDI side, I would not say that it is easier or difficult, because even if you are applying as a AUA, KUA, there is a set of standard process which as an entity you have to comply. So from UIDI side, the approval is smooth, whether you are applying to become a AUA, KUA or a sub-entity of some other AUA, KUA. However, for implementation and to go live, it is a little convenient or little cost effective for an entity to become a sub-entity of existing AUA or KUA. Okay. Because when you become a AUA, KUA, you have to submit the license fee, you have to sign an agreement with UIDI, you have to develop your infrastructure, develop your application, get it audited by IS Auditor, and then you get the production access. While you become a sub-entity, because all these processes have already been done by the AUA, KUA, you simply submit a joint undertaking with the AUA, KUA, and the process approval is taken, and audit is there now. even the sub entities need to submit the audit report. So that process is there. So that go live time is reduced, and even the cost is reduced, because as a sub entity you need to deposit a license fee of 3 lakhs for 2 years, which is 20 lakhs for a AUAKU.
Thank you. So going over to Mr. Shivakumar, I mean, Shivakumar, you have been in this sector, you have a specialized domain knowledge in this sector. So with this new RBI notification and the welcome move for us to use Aadhaar, what are the changes that you're seeing in future to your application and way forward for MFIs?
Yeah, so in the application side, so the onboarding, which is actually it can be done now, is faster. So that is one of the concerns. After this pandemic, there is a lot of digital collections, and disbursement is already cashless. So this makes actually onboarding will be a smooth process. But I can hear the risk side actually, because since Aadhaar number is not allowed to store. So that is some kind of the disappointment I can see from the MFIs. But it is for the larger MFIs, this onboarding will be faster. But maybe I can see here is that for the credit bureau point of view, they need to again maybe match the voter ID name and Aadhaar number, Aadhaar name, so that they can establish that that correlation to minimize the risk. So otherwise, it is a good move. The banks are already started using it, so that NBFCs also get the benefit on this onboarding thing, which will be 100% digital. Many of the MFIs also already navigated into the fully digital mode. This also make them 100% compliance with the regulations also. So I see that this is a good move. And technology side, so this is a restart. Actually, it was already there 2-3 years back. Many of the NBFCs were started and then they stopped because of the certain regulation changes. So it is only we need to restart it. So otherwise, the technology wise and all our application side wise also, our applications are already ready with this ones. It is only we're waiting for the formalities has to be completed from the NBFC side.
Like Mr. Ankush mentioned that the software will handshake with each other. Like NSDL will have that application for this Aadhaar verification, and the internal software of the organization will handshake with that to populate the data into their data without the Aadhaar number, of course. Yes. So is that part already covered in your software?
Yeah. So the vault is optional, as he is also mentioning into that. So NBFC is not allowed to store the vault. So it's an optional process. The bank does that one. So this is seamlessly. It will transmit the data, so it will not be stored in memory also. So those are the part of the audit also. UIDAI does actually. So these are already well established process with NSDL or any other the service provider. So it is quite simple interfacing actually. So I'm not seeing that any of the service provider or will be facing any difficulties to integrate with the services actually.
Okay. So for my MFI colleagues, for Mr. Krishna and Mr. Shiva Prasad, let us take a scenario post E-KYC for customer acquisition. The customer walks into our office, or it could be even our staff reaches the home with tablets and fingerprint scanner. The customer provides Aadhaar number and biometrics, encrypts and sends to CIDR, Central Identity Data Repository. UIDAI responds with full details of the clients in encrypted form. Data auto-populated into the system. Full audit trail maintained along with data signature and the process time and date. This will require adequate investment in software, hardware, server, besides data security, system audits, and recruitment of system specialists. That we discussed in even various presentations that was presented. In that also it was discussed. So what will be the preference? I mean, as an MFI, will it be in-house or outsourcing? If in-house, what are the challenges you see? And if outsource, what are the changes that you expect? I mean, you could start off with Shiva Prakash.
See, I mean, we work with Shivakumar Craft Silicon. I mean, we use BR.NET as our application. So we would actually be going with vending, I mean, other vendor. I mean, for example, we also work with NSDL for e-sign. So our option to begin with would be to go with a tie up with a vendor like NSDL. As an MFI, we would rather be focusing on onboarding the customers and lending to them than be distracted with other things. So we would ideally be going with a company like NSDL to integrate the E-KYC requirement.
Shiva Prakash. Yeah, sorry, Krishna.
Same sentiments. If at all, like earlier, I couldn't put across our views clearly. The thing is, in 2017 itself, we had got into a discussion with NSDL, and in 2018 we executed an agreement with them for the same purpose before the Supreme Court ruling came out. Definitely, as Mr. Shiv Prakash told, we would be thinking of going ahead with our existing software vendor to do that job, and then partnering again with NSDL to take this forward. We have already applied for the sub-KUA approval from RBI last week itself. That's where it stands, sir.
So, I mean, coming back to the guidelines of RBI, when I was reading in the guidelines, there are specified limits for E-KYC, whether it is borrowings or even deposits. I mean, eventually all these will be raised by RBI. So, I mean, with all these constraints, limitations, having a lower limit than the actual limit for the MFIs. Do you see this as a challenge? This is to Shiva Prakash.
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of this constraint. What is this about?
See, I mean, while for SHGs, there are no issues, for deposits, there are 2 lakh rupees limit for a E-KYC. For a lending, a gross limit is there, which I believe is around 60,000. I don't know whether it has been raised or not. I mean, if these kind of limits remain, what are the challenges that you see?
See, again, when we look at the limits in terms of, we don't take deposits because we are NBFC.
Yeah, right.
In case of disbursements, I'm not sure how E-KYC is a hindrance for whatever is the. At the end of the day, we are validating the customer, which is much more secure than what you would do with a paper-based verification. So, I don't see it as a challenge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I come on that, Mr. Anjan?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So as you said rightly, yeah, there are limits, but for deposit also, if it is done through biometrics, like a fingerprint or iris, then I think there are no limits for the deposits also. If it is done through OTP, then as you said rightly, yes, there are limits for deposit. But again, as Mr. Shiv Prakash said, for lending, again, I don't think there are any limits for E-KYC.
Okay. This is for all, actually. I mean, we can take it one by one. I mean, there's going to be a paradigm shift in what you see with all these changes in regulations on the NBFC MFI model. I mean, the MFI model is going to have a lot of changes. Will the traditional model be on threat with newer strategies, or do you see the traditional model further strengthening? We can start it off with Mr. Krishna.
From the beginning itself, our company got started in 2017. We were taking baby steps towards completely digitizing the microfinance journey for the customer, and also doing a pilot for a presence-less kind of microfinance. So how I foresee it is like both models will continue for some more time till the digital inclusion extends its sphere and reaches all our customers. And then definitely there should be a shift where we can think of at least presence-less kind of customer onboarding. Whether the entire human touch will go, at present, I don't see that happening, at least after the post-pandemic, wherever the human touch is high, the collections are better. But if at all in future, the Aadhaar, we are allowed to do store the Aadhaar number, and it becomes a single credential for credit verification in this country, then yes, I foresee a tremendous shift happening, because then that's the unique identity, and you can't have a default tag against your Aadhaar number. Then this Aadhaar authentication as well as credit bureau verification goes in tandem. Yes, a great possibility is there.
So, Mr. Shivaprakash, I mean, what he mentioned in addition to that, I mean, the competition, I mean, with the digital onboarding of customers, there are going to be other players that are also going to come in along with the microfinance institutions. The banks are going to come in. Then there are models like BC, the co-lending models and all that. I mean, will the MFIs be under threat to convert to NBFC, I mean, to small finance bank, or I mean, all three are going to coexist, NGOs, MFI, and NBFC, MFIs, small finance bank, and universal bank?
See, at the end of the day, technology or no technology, it's about customer service. So I don't see any of these becoming a threat to the NBFCs. But having said that, see, I mean, right now, I mean, there can't be anything. I mean, if you're involving too much of technology, we are going to lose the customer connect. I mean, that's something which should not happen. I mean, we are already seeing that in case of collection, we use UPI. We have a lot of centers where collections happen 100% through UPI mode. Okay, percentage is low, but even in those centers, they are asking why should we come to the center meeting. Okay, so if you're talking about the traditional model, of course there will be changes considering what's happening. I mean, E-KYC was the only piece that was missing to make the entire onboarding process paperless. I mean, with e-sign already available, once E-KYC piece also falls in place, the entire workflow is going to be paperless. Okay, the only thing that we now need to focus on is making collections cashless. I mean, that's a long journey, but the point is, there have always been competitions. SFBs have been there, banks have been there. Banks are more interested in BC model than getting hands dirty directly. So considering all that, I'm sure we have a space. Banks have their space. SFBs will have their space. My feeling is, irrespective of technology, I think customer service is the most critical thing.
That's it. Like, I mean, thank you so much for joining. The E-KYC notification is certainly a forward-thinking move by RBI. Will, as mentioned by everyone, will ease customer onboarding, improve customer experience, reduce risk for financial service providers, increase compliance, reduce cumbersome paperwork, physical document storage, reach wider population, improve trust level of clients, as well as the service providers' trust on client, create a more structured database of client credit records and scores. So with this, I open the discussion for all to participate. So, I mean, I think there are certain questions in the chat box. I mean, if Shoibal could help me out deal with them, like that would be great.
I will do that one. So the first question is, Milind Kesarkar. He is asking, is there any recurring cost for AUA services?
Aditya ji can actually answer that. In fact, he's answered it before.
Yeah, so the license fee of 20 lakhs is for 2 years, right? So, and it is a recurring cost. So every 2 years, the license fee of 20 lakhs has to be paid, and transaction charges as per the usage. And if for a sub entity, it will be 3 lakhs for 2 years.
The second question is from somebody called VG. There are two questions. How do we detect Aadhaar E-KYC tampering or its authenticity? And the second question, is the data encrypted, thereby preventing any misuse?
So the E-KYC data is encrypted using the public key of the KUA. This is one. And second thing is it is digitally signed by UID. So any tampering, if there is any tampering, the digital signature verification will fail.
So somebody, Rajesh Misra, is asking, KUA license can be used by subsidiaries, associates, associate companies, or NHBFC, MFI, or they have to apply separately. Need clarification on the above, if panelists can throw some light on the same.
So one thing is that Aadhaar usage is as per the approved purpose, right? So a bank may be providing multiple services to the residents, and they may have different line of functions, but Aadhaar is allowed for a specific purpose. So whether it is banking, whether it is for insurance, whether it is for any other purpose. So first thing is that purpose has to be approved. And second thing is KUA license is given to an entity, a legal entity, for a specific purpose. So if it is to be used by some other legal entity, then that entity has to become a sub KUA or a fresh AUA or KUA with UID.
The next question is from my colleague Karthik. He is asking, is the license fee different from institutions applying as KUA and sub KUA with existing KUA?
I'm not sure about this question.
Karthik, you can ask. Okay, there is observation that, sir, cost is too much high for data vault implementation, CISA implementation, or for new organization. Is it mandatory for all NBFC MFI or any AUM based criteria?
So as I mentioned that Aadhaar data vault is required only for those entities who are storing Aadhaar number. So I think NBFCs are not going to store Aadhaar number, so Aadhaar data vault is not required. This is one. Rest all security requirements, because Aadhaar is something which is governed by the Aadhaar Act and its regulations. So you have to comply with the provisions which are there in the Act and regulations. So that IS audit is a mandatory requirement. Every entity has to comply with that.
The next question is from Adarsh Kumar. Probably we have already answered it. Sub AUA / KUA also required to submit application to RBI? First question. Second question is, who are required to maintain authentication log? If every REs are required to maintain authentication log, does they need to maintain Aadhaar vault?
So application, yes, every entity, even if it is a sub entity, they have to apply to RBI as per the process approved or the circular issued by Department of Revenue dated 9th May 2019. This is the answer to first question. Second is, as per the Aadhaar authentication regulation, even a sub entity is a requesting entity as per the Aadhaar Act and regulations, and maintenance of logs is a mandatory requirement.
So next question is from Sangamitra. So Sangamitra is basically under Section 8 company. So they're asking, irrespective of legal form of MFI, all MFI should be provided to all MFI. All MFI should be provided to all MFI. Means he is telling that all the MFIs instead of NBFC, all the MFIs should be included in this process. It's a request from our end also.
So this is something which Department of Revenue and RBI and your respective regulator have to take a call. Basis on the circular issued by Department of Revenue, this process has been defined. So UIDAI has not defined, and UIDAI is seeking recommendation from the respective regulator. So we are not deciding who is, yeah. So you have to refer to that regulation dated 9th May 2019 from Department of Revenue, and accordingly you may approach your respective regulator or ministry.
Okay, the last question is it possible to share the entity specific number to CKYCR?
I guess you are asking about the UID token.
I think
which is so it is not allowed actually, and it is not allowed, and it won't help also, because it is your specific number. There is no point of sharing this number with any other entity. There is no benefit out of it.
Oh, there are another two questions. Sorry. Considering cost difference of two alternatives, sub AUA, KUA, 20 lakhs / 3 lakhs, why opt for more expensive option? Like, it is your take for sure, but I would like to throw it to our panelists, including representatives from.
So if you want to have a better control over your services, and you do not want to be dependent, you have a good volume of transactions, then probably you can go for becoming a KUA.
Okay.
And again, as you rightly said, it is up to the entity how you want to go ahead.
All right. So there is another question. This, you are saying 20 lakhs is required as deposit for Aadhaar data vault application for storing data. If we do not store data, is rupees 20 lakhs required for renewal of every 2 years? Renewal every 2 years.
So it is not related to Aadhaar data vault. It is an application for license fee to be deposited for 2 years with UIDAI. So every 2 years you have to deposit this license fee of rupees 20 lakhs plus taxes, right? And bank guarantee of 25 lakhs for 10 years is also there.
So it is that there is another question related to it. Is the deposit amount of rupees 20 lakh or 3 lakh is refundable?
No, it is not refundable.
So there is another question which is already, I think we have discussed. Sir, what would be the cost per E-KYC verification transaction?
We have already discussed this. At present, it is rupees 20.
Yeah.
However, we have proposed it to be rupees 3. The revised draft regulations are on our website. You can go through that, and if you have any comments or suggestions, you can submit that.
Yes, for sure. We would be happy to get all those suggestions and send it back to you for sure. So, Mr. Dasgupta, these are all questions I present.
I have another question to Mr. Aditya. So, if you are reducing, see, as of now for e-sign, there's a UIDAI charges of 20 rupees. So, will that also come down?
The charges for e-sign is not by UIDAI. E-sign is not UIDAI service.
So, Aditya, if I can, sorry to
interrupt. Sure, please.
So, Mr. Shivprakash, yes, the cost will come down. So, this is, in fact, Nisha must have spoken with your team already. So, but this will come down when this is the proposed regulation, as said by Mr. Aditya. Once it is effective in the production, or once it comes live, then definitely we'll pass on that benefit. It will come down for e-sign also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So let me clarify it further, that e-sign service is using Aadhaar E-KYC. Now, as Aadhaar is charging rupees 20 for KYC, the e-sign service providers might be charging some additional fees over the charges by UIDAI, E-KYC charges by UIDAI. So 20 rupees plus X amount. Now, I suppose that benefit will be passed on to for the e-sign users.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a learning experience. Thank you so much, panelists, for joining us. Thank you, Sanjeev ji. Thank you, Aditya ji. Thank you, Sherbal, for organizing this. So I hand it over to Shoibal, for the final.
So First of all, we had a wonderful discussion. And this is, I presume it's very timely because the notification has just come recently. And what I would, some of the areas which really liked, and probably these colleagues who are participating from different part of the country, they could understand is basically what Ms. Siva Prakash was telling. It's very interesting that it is all about people and the technology we are using to identify the right kind of customer. And also if Aadhaar number, if we can see it, then we can get more, because it is also giving us the demographic details. That's very interesting part of it. And my personal communication with Credit Information Bureau, that with Aadhaar, the accuracy goes as high as more than 95%, but without Aadhaar, it comes down to 70 to 80%. So Aadhaar is very important, which repeatedly had been stressed during our discussion. And then there was a discussion on the overall picture, what exactly is going to happen about this. Mr. Sanjeev and Mr. Aditya from EYDI, they have contributed substantially, and they have given us a kind of very good idea that what exactly is it and how can we go forward. And there are some like financials which we could understand from their deliberation. Probably we need to work on it a bit. Then I also like this, thank to this Ankush regarding this. He was giving us a very good view about the architecture of how is it going to happen. We got a lot of questions that, okay, notification is there. We also understand Aadhaar shading. We also understand the technology. But what's the overall architecture in this? What Shiva Prakash was also talking about, that this was the only this missing gap in the whole architecture. Once we get it, then it's a kind of overall, then we can, we can serve our clients efficiently, right kind of client with right kind of money, everything. Then I would like to thank Siva also. Siva has assured us about the integration. That's another question. Like always, there was just to bring to your attention, there was one scheme from government. MFIs couldn't pick it up because of the technology. There was so much of technology mismatch that they couldn't. But Siva has given us like a kind of assurance that it won't be that big a mess. It will be easy integration. I would like to thank Krishna, because Krishna has experience of doing it and getting glitched, and had a kind of little bit tough time to do it. Thank you, Krishna, to bring it candidly. And if you have kind of other challenges, please do let us know. We will escalate it to EYDI. Overall, it was very, very good. And I'm really thankful to Mr. Dasgupta for this wonderful moderation. So it is not only deliberation, it is also understanding critical things, the missing links. I'm really thanking you for this one wonderful thing. If I don't thank my colleague, Karthik Ramdas, it will be a kind of, once again, a missing link. Karthik has been extremely helpful. He is the one who started discussing on this one, that we should do this one and we should do it as soon as possible. Then we started working on it. Thank you, Karthik, for doing this one. And nonetheless, I would like to thank P. Satish sir for giving us this opportunity to do it and to take it forward. And at last, I would request all my colleagues, whoever working across the country, if you have any challenges or anything regarding this, please do write back to us. Our regional coordinators are there, I'm there, and it means Mr. Satish is very accessible. You can even write to them. Whoever you want, please do write to them. We will take it forward and escalate it to the different, maybe regulators, maybe UIDAI. So wherever necessary, we will do it. So overall, it was really very educating experience. We are really thankful for all of you to be here. My sincere thank you for all of you. Thank you. We would like to see you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.